Welcome to How They Do That. I'm your host, Scott Waldron, and here is a little preview of what you're going to hear today.
I had no future, I had no prospects, I had no life ahead of me. And if I would have stayed where I was, I probably would have fallen victim to the same things that all my friends fell victim to. The person who's, sitting over here in marketing or accounting, or who's the first line supervisor, these are tomorrow's leaders. And if you invest in them the same way that you're hunting for the C-suite or you're hunting for those upper level managers that are the ones that are actually going to pay you today, by investing really well and making sure that you keep those connections, those are the people that will expand your business tomorrow. Anyone who says, Scott, I'm attracted to your vision, I want to be in your army, those people need to know what to do next too. And for them, it isn't always buy the next product or buy the next book or listen to the next podcast episode. It's advocate, share, criticize me. Hey, once a month, can you send me something that tells me what I can do better to serve you? All of these things are natural next steps.
When I was starting my own coaching journey, I was just this wee little lad just trying to understand how to do this thing and build this thing and coach and talk and sell and speak and do all the things. And there was one individual that stuck out to me early on, and it's Mark. And Mark Tilsher is who I'm going to talk to today, because I always wanted to understand how did he build this movement that he's built. These coaches that want to follow him and the customers that want to follow him and his audience and all these clients. And I was just like, what did he do? How did he do this thing that he's done? And it was really interesting. Mark's always been so willing to talk to me and mentor me and give me some words of advice. And now he gets to do that for you. That's super cool. Take advantage of it, y'all, because Mark has something to say. The things that he says are pretty profound, and I hope you'll pay attention to that. He has, been dedicated to the military community, and that is something that's really, really pushed him and what he's done and the purpose that he found in his own work. And I think that's what all of us need to really figure out and to find is our own purpose and how we do things and what we do. So he is, termed the military Sherpa because he does do so much for the military. That is his core business model, is working with the military, his own military background, and now coming and working with veterans and active military to understand how do they shape their lives? How do they do the things that they need to do within their positions to serve well and to lead well? And the movement that he has built, I'm telling y'all, is pretty epic. And now he gets to share a little bit of that with you. Mark Tilsher, the military Sherpa. What's up, buddy?
How's it going, Mr. Scott? How you doing, bud?
Oh man, I'm so good. Now I'm talking to you. Like, how can anybody not be good when they get to talk to you? That's what I'm saying.
Ooh, so, it's good to hear your voice. Good to see your face.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm going to tell everybody really quick. It was years ago, I was going to my first meeting of giants. We're giant consultants, and we're going to this, what we call the gathering. All the giants come together in a single place. We were in Oklahoma City at the time, and we were kind of like this conference of giants, and we were all there, and I didn't know anything. I was there. I was just new. I was a newbie in the community. I want to see what this thing was all about. I was getting in really hard into my coaching career, and I don't know anybody. And then all of a sudden they talk about, they're giving these awards, right? And they're talking about these people that are basically just killing it. Like, that's basically it. That's basically the award, the Killing It Award. That's not really what it was called. That's what I'm going to call it. And they said this name, Mark Tilsher, and you get up and they're like, that was like, you're one of the first people that I ever remember. You're ingrained in my brain. I'm like, who's this guy? Like, who in the world is this dude killing? And how did he do that? And I was just going, I'm going to follow this guy. I'm just going to like hold on to his coattails as he flies through the universe, blazing trails for everybody, and that's what you do. And I just want you to know that that's where my intro to you came, and it is stuck and it's in my brain, and that is you. So you've got a lot to live up to. I'm just saying, no pressure.
Skot, if I had one takeaway from every time that I talk to you, it's that if I die first, my wife's going to contact you to do my obituary. Like, you're going to be the guy. So don't be, be surprised if I die, right? But don't be surprised if you get the phone call that maybe you're the guy.
Oh man, that would be an honor. I would cry just a little bit, not a whole lot, great. But I'll cry just a little bit. I'll get a little choked up for you. Okay,
that's awesome. Yes, sir.
Oh man, that's so cool. Okay, people need to hear your story though, because it's really, really important. Not only for us as human beings, but for the military community and others to understand your story and where you came from. So will you introduce us to that quickly and help us know your background and how you got into this?
Yeah, absolutely, Skot. Thank you. So I'm Mark Tilsher, of course, a military Sherpa. And I think the biggest key point is I'm a 21-year Air Force veteran. I ended my military service back in 2019. So almost 5 years. We're going to hit our 5-year anniversary coming up at the end of the month. And for sake of brevity, I won't cover my entire story, but I'll just say that, like a lot of folks in the military, I think that there's a conception in the civilian sector, and we certainly believe in the military, that the U.S. military is America's best. And having lived that life for 21 years, like I would echo, I would beat my chest on that. I would hang my flag on that as well. But I think one of the big misconceptions that people have is that I don't think that the military attracts America's best. I think that there are a small percentage of folks who join the military because they're super patriotic, or they join the military because they have this great vision, or there's a family legacy. But a lot of us join the military because we don't know what else to do, and we don't have any other prospects. And when I joined the Air Force back in 1998, I was literally living on my friend's couch. I had nowhere to go, nothing to do. It was necessity that drove me into the military. And by that point, I had lost a bunch of friends to drug overdose and suicide and all this crazy things that had been stacking up. And I think the big takeaway is, like, I was really headed nowhere. I had no future. I had no prospects. I had no life ahead of me. And if I would have stayed where I was, I probably would have fallen victim to the same things that all my friends fell victim to. And what the military does that is so unbelievably remarkable is it takes coal, and through immense pressure that starts right away when you join the military, through this immense pressure, it creates diamonds. And that process takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. And my first year and a half inside of the Air Force, I really just made every mistake that a human could make. And that's the central theme of my life. Like, depending on how deep we get into the different things that we've done, like, I make every mistake. I'm not proud of it, but I make every mistake so that other people don't have to. Like, we got hit by a train in Amsterdam. We were $97,000 in debt. So I started a podcast teaching people how to manage money because I didn't want anybody else to make the same mistakes I did. And so while my first year and a half or so, I just started to experience all the bad stuff, ultimately getting an Article 15, which is non-judicial punishment inside of the Air Force after a crazy string of events. And it was at that moment where really everything in my life changed. And the decision that the military had to make at that time was, was I going to get to stay in, or was I going to get kicked out? And if I got kicked out, I was going to go back home to the same couches with the same people doing the same things. And I would have been literally doomed. It would have been a death warrant, for me. And what the Air Force did at that time was, not only did they let me stay in, they gave me a new supervisor. Somebody came into my life, now Chief Retired Kevin Cronister. And when he stepped into my life, he just established this unbelievable amount of influence with me. And we talk about the different relational powers, and, you talk about coercive power, the punishment power. What he did in my life was really referent power, which I just grew immensely respectful of him and his family and integrated into their lives. And it changed everything for me. I mean, in no small way, I was never the same person again for the rest of my life. And my mission at that time became, and I couldn't articulate it really well while I was still in the military, but about 3.5 years into my military career, my mission really became, how do I take everything that this guy did in my life and scale this across the universe? I wanted to get into the life of every human I could possibly find. And so I would try to go wherever airmen were in the United States Air Force, whether they're at the chapel or the dining facility, like wherever airmen were, that's where I wanted to be. I just wanted to speak into their hearts and to show love to them. And really what it was I had never felt valued in my life. And that's what he brought into it was, hey, what I thought was important and what I did was important, and consequences mattered, and I could be anyone that I wanted to be. And so in my military career, the way that I felt at the time was I was planting my flag, because I looked around and there were a lot of Mark Tilshers. And what I was afraid of at the time was what if there's a Mark Tilsher who's in the exact same circumstances that I'm in, but they have a supervisor who doesn't know how to do what Chief Cronister did, who isn't interested in doing what Chief Cronister did, who doesn't care as much. He was a staff sergeant at the time, but who doesn't care as much as Staff Sergeant Cronister did. And so it became this really compelling vision for me while I was still in the military of like, how do I plant this flag? And the goal being, how do I inspire other people to plant their flag? And I thought of it very much like a candlelight service at church. Like, I have this bright candle, and if I can just light other people's candles, then all of a sudden we would have this crazy culture change. And I got to be the commandant of an airman leadership school, which is all I ever wanted to be. I realized that's where all the airmen were. I was hunting for them, and then I found them. They were all at this magical airman leadership school. So the Air Force let me be the commandant of that school for a season for almost 5 years. I got to do that. And what I experienced at that time was I didn't have a vision beyond that, but two, I capped my influence. And at the time I was enlisted. So there's enlisted members and officers in the military generally. In the past, it was like, if you had a degree, you became an officer. If you didn't have a degree, you became enlisted. And it's not quite as clean cut anymore. But what I realized at that time was I got to where I wanted to be, and I was doing what I wanted to do. And I thought I would have the generational change that I wanted to have. But I started to cap my influence. And the closer that I got to the end of that assignment, the more I realized that I wasn't really going to hit my goal, and that just planting my flag and trying to inspire other people to plant a flag of their own, it wasn't enough. And so I decided ultimately to separate from the Air Force, which we did. And we started what's now the Military Sherpa Group, a division of my company, Altitude Leadership Group, after being exposed to the amazing tools inside of Giant, which is the foundation of all that we do. And it was what I learned, I think, that we're going to talk about today. It's what I learned in that transition of going, all right, I'm trying to create clones of myself, which is a strategy that doesn't scale, to how do I create a movement that inevitably swallows the culture? And ultimately, that's what I'm after, is I want to swallow the Department of Defense culture. And it's going to take years. It could take a decade. It could take 2 decades, but inevitably we'll win, because our strategy of multiplication and scaling and creating an army is working. And we're starting to gain influence at the absolute highest levels of leadership. And it's amazing to watch, very humbling, and definitely surprising, I think, in a lot of ways, that we're able to do some of the cool things that we get to do, for sure. So, Scott, that's kind of how we got to where we are in a tiny little nutshell.
That is a very tiny, no, it's not quite a tiny nutshell. It's a medium-sized nutshell.
Ooh.
For sure. Thanks for sharing that. There's how many people do you think you have spoken with, coached, people that have listened to your podcast? I mean, people like inside the Department of Defense, how many people do you think you've just guesstimate? Okay. I know it's impossible to really say, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think right now, if I was to get all the people into one location who have been exposed to anything that we've done, I think that we're getting close to, the number that sticks in my head is about 75,000. And I think that we're getting close to 75,000 when it comes to evangelists, true blue converts that are carrying the flag and want what I want and want what our team wants. I think we're getting close to 3,000. And so they're the ones who are really expanding our influence. But we have real champions that, I mean, they breathe what we breathe, and they want.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. Because you think about the people that, have had some exposure, right? The seed's been planted. It's there. And it's maybe dormant, but it's planted, but then you've got these other evangelists, and we talk all the time about multiplication, and that's what we're doing, right? You alone can't do the work. It's how do you get other people to carry the flag and live the movement and be part of it? First of all, they have to buy in to the movement. They have to look and see you as the beacon of hope and light that you are, and go, I want what he has. And I think that that's something that you've done really, really well. I mean, here out of the stats, you said you have grown your team to now you're around 10 people. Since you've done this. Now you've also increased your revenue 60% year over year. And that, if we can sit there and say, wow, can I have a piece of that? Can I do that, please? Like, I think we would all be in a really, really good place with our businesses. And some of us struggle with doing that. Some of us are at that tipping point of, how do I just get over that line? But you have built the movement. So we're going to talk about these 3 steps to building an unstoppable movement. And we're talking about people that buy into what you have. So what are those? What are the things we can do as coaches to build the thing that you've built so well?
Yeah, Scott, there's like, let me give you like 17 preambles and then we'll jump into the three
Okay,
things. I think
fine.
no, it's fantastic. So I think the number one thing, if I did anything well along this journey, the biggest thing that I did well is not despising small beginnings. And I think that this is one of the things that there's a benefit to being a veteran. There's a benefit to being a disabled veteran, and that is you have a degree of financial security. And so I can plant seeds, and I can plant seeds a lot. I can sow more probably than most people can, especially when they're starting a consulting business. And I think one of the things that I did really well is recognizing that the person who's sitting over here in marketing or accounting, or who's the first line supervisor, these are tomorrow's leaders. And if you invest in them the same way that you're hunting for the C-suite, or you're hunting for those upper level managers that are the ones that are actually going to pay you today, by investing really well and making sure that you keep those connections, those are the people that will expand your business tomorrow. And I think that if I was going to give, like, if there's just one piece of advice, I would say don't despise those small beginnings, that those people, all of them will have, or a degree of them anyway, will have expanded influence, expanded reach, and they know people. And I think that if you can take just one thing away and you ignore everything else that I say, I think don't despise small beginnings, and just remember that those people are all headed somewhere, and your goal ultimately is for them to take you with them, right? That's what you want, is that when they get to that next level, you're their person. And beyond that, like, we can talk about 3 steps and all the other things, but I think that that's probably the most important thing that I've done really, really well, is becoming the person for even the person who's working the cash register, let's say, right? That person needs to be severely attached to you. They need to see you as their person and the solution to their problem. So I think that's the number one thing that I would give to anybody who is listening.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Tell me then, give me some level of practicality, something that you've done that I can do, that anybody else can do in the next month, in the next week, in the next whatever, when they're done with this, to help build their businesses and thrive.
One piece of practicality. Okay, so well, let's see. That's a really good question. So I think that when it comes to what you do, when you're in person, when you're at an event, making sure that you spend time with the people that don't necessarily matter. And I don't mean that they don't matter in the sense of like that they literally don't matter, but there's people in the tertiary, there's people on the sides, and that often that's where some of the greatest breakthrough is happening. And I think that we often have a tendency to focus on the person directly that we're coaching, rather than focusing on the group in its entirety. And I think that's a piece that if you were going to do one thing different, it's when you go into a room, just certainly make sure that you understand, or at least are spending time with some of the people I think that are getting the job done. I think that that's where I would start, is those relationships. And again, connector is my 4th voice if we're talking 5 voices language. But I think that's where I would give you the most practical, I think, piece when it comes to that, is find a way inside of your business to stay connected to those individuals. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. Some of us are doing it through email opt-in. Some of us have a podcast. Some of us we have an email list. But I think that those touch points and being intentional about staying in contact with some of those people, I think when it comes to that, is probably the most practical advice I could give, I think, in that regard. I don't know, Scott.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that it is the ability to build influence with everyone, and how do we transfer our thing to them, and then they can be the cheerleaders or the people that have maybe not the decision-making power now, but the influence maybe at that time. And maybe they will make the decisions at some point in time.
Yep.
So, okay, what else? How do we build an unstoppable movement?
Well, let's talk about our 3 things. So here's the first thing that I would say.
Go.
Yeah, let's talk about our 3 things. So here's the first thing that I would say. If you don't have an army of people that are following you, the number one thing you've got to do is you've got to assume that it's your fault. And I think this is a huge starting point, where people look at the landscape and we see you can name a million names, right? Regardless of who they are, we'll keep it general. But you can see the landscape. The landscape is incredibly crowded. There's more consultants now than there's ever been before. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the leadership space or we're talking about the military space. It is packed with people. And if you're not getting the business that you feel that you deserve, if your movement doesn't have the attention that you believe that it deserves, then ultimately you're going to have to assume that it's your fault. Just like any other leadership problem, it's either a skill, it's your your mindset, or it's a self-awareness problem of some kind. So that's the starting point. But when it comes to the three things, and these will be very familiar to you, Scott, it's going to come right out of a giant tool. But when it comes to the three things that you can do to build an unstoppable movement, the first one starts with what it is that you're tackling. And the term that we would use for that is dissatisfaction with the status quo. And I get a lot of feedback for our programs. It's like clockwork. So when I do a coaching program or I do a workshop, people will always say the same things about the workshop. They'll always say it's the best class that I've ever been to. They always say, I wish everybody was here. They always say, I wish that I would have had this earlier in my career. And recently, I got a feedback from a student that says, Mark cares more about what happens across the DoD than any military leader currently serving. And as I was reading that feedback, I'm like, well, on its face, this is obviously not true. If I was to stack up all the current military leaders, there's people who have sacrificed more. There's people who have invested more. They've given more of their life. They've devoted more years to the service, certainly, than I have. But at the end of the day, something is happening inside of my messaging that makes people believe that I care more. It's not that I'm trying to trick them or deceive them. It's just that the way that I'm communicating it hits their heart. And when it comes to this first piece, if you don't have a movement, or your movement isn't growing at the speed that you want it to, you've got to look at the dissatisfaction that you're tackling. And what I mean by that is simply, what is the problem that you're actually solving? Some of us are solving a problem that is really tied to what we feel. And we often think that, okay, I'm frustrated, so they're frustrated. I see this, so they see this. But the reality is often that the thing that we see, the solution that we try to sell, isn't always the problem that people are shopping for. It's not always the problem that people are thinking about. So I have the problem of, let's say, veteran divorce and veteran suicide. These are the two things that I want to tackle for a lot of really, really personal reasons. But none of my clients are veterans. All of my clients are active duty. And so if I go into the active duty force and I say, hey, I'm here to solve the veteran suicide and the veteran divorce problem, there's not a lot of dissatisfaction inside the US military with that problem. This is a tomorrow problem to them, not a today problem. So inside of my messaging and what I do, the dissatisfaction that I'm tackling, it has to be keenly honed in on what it is that my customer is feeling. If you don't understand their dissatisfaction, if when you're speaking, you're not getting the head nods, if people aren't taking you on the side and going, man, everything that you were talking about is speaking to my heart. What you're thinking is what I'm thinking. What you're saying is what I'm feeling. I've been trying to find words for this my entire life. Nobody's listening. If that's not happening to you, you're not articulating that dissatisfaction clearly enough. And history is full of people, whether we're talking about, we could look at Rosa Parks, the dissatisfaction that she was dealing with, the racial segregation laws that were in the Southern United States, right? That was hit very keenly. Everybody knew exactly what she felt. You could think about Gandhi and Indian independence. The dissatisfaction that he was tackling was very keen. It was very specific. It was very clear. And so what happened, that first step, they met that first box. And so people rallied around them. But if you don't have a movement, there's a strong probability, if I sat down with you and I listened to you and you said, man, I want a movement, I want an army of people of peace that are following me. If you tell me your dissatisfaction and you don't have a movement, there's a high probability that you're tackling something that's really important to you, but it's not hitting their heart the way that you want it to. So you got to go back to the drawing board. That's the very first piece that I would encourage people to look at, is inside of your messaging and inside of your products, are you touching their dissatisfaction? If the answer is no, nobody's going to follow you.
So what is, if we go back to your example, because I know that is a big point of yours, is to tackle the suicide and other issues happening within veteran space. But again, that's not what you're doing day to day necessarily, right? But you're prepping them for the tomorrow problem. So what is the problem that what is the dissatisfaction you're serving right now?
It's a good question. So I open everything I do with an exercise. And the exercise is a game. So even before I introduce myself, like I'll say, like, hi, I'm Mark. I'm excited to be here, whatever. But I don't give my story. I don't do my introduction. I always start with the game. And the game it's called Us or Them. And I have a picture of civilians and I have a picture of military folks, and I throw them up on the screen. And I say, all right, I'm going to put some words up on the screen. You got to tell me who takes the title. Is it civilians or is it military? And the audience obviously gets excited. And the first word I throw up is alcoholism. And so some people say civilians drink more alcohol. Some will say military. Military drinks more alcohol by a long shot. We deployed some Army folks to Keflavik. They drank all the beer in the Capitol in a weekend. Like, we don't mess around. It's not something to be proud of. although people will laugh, but we get that title. And then I throw up the next statistic, divorce. And it's like, yeah, military members get divorced more than civilians. Debt, we have 10% more debt than the civilian sector does. Suicide, of course, that doesn't surprise anybody. There's more suicide. Depression, we have more depression, more PTSD, all of that inside the military. And then I do tack on to that game, does it get worse or does it get better over time? And it gets worse. Veterans have these problems worse than active duty does. So the initial dissatisfaction that I touch on with my audience is like, you got a lot of problems and your problems suck. Like, they're bad problems. They're problems that will take you out of the game. And the dissatisfaction that I ultimately get to inside of the military is that the leadership models that we're using do nothing to solve these problems. And so we're just wasting time. And we're wasting hundreds of thousands of man hours every single year doing things that don't matter. They don't move the needle. Because if you look at, let's say, assault in the military, numbers haven't changed in 20 years. You want to look at divorce, numbers haven't changed in 20 years. You want to look at suicide, numbers haven't changed since 2014. You want to look at depression, alcoholism, they're getting worse, not better. And that's the dissatisfaction that I have to shift and touch on is, look, if we can solve these problems for you, then we solve the problems for you later, right? Like, if we can figure out how to create a healthy person, then you'll be healthy enough to survive transition. If I can find a way to create a healthy marriage, then your marriage will survive transition. But I have to tackle your dissatisfaction, which is the wasted time, impractical leadership models. Nothing that we're doing is working. And it's that frustration. And the way the military translates that, they often translate it as nobody cares. And it's helping them to reframe that and go, it's not that nobody cares. It's you got a bunch of unhealthy people that are not skilled, that can't do the job. And that resonates. Once we get to there, that dissatisfaction, I can talk about anything after that. I can sell them a Dr. Seuss book. They're ready to listen, at least, because the dissatisfaction for them is so keenly felt.
Yeah, you've connected with them and empathized with them to the state where they're saying, he gets me. He understands what I'm going through. I have to listen to this because I want a solution to my problem. So what's step number 2?
Yeah. And so the second step, of course, is that vision. And the vision that comes next, it has to be so closely linked to the dissatisfaction that they have that it intuitively makes sense to them. That as soon as you start to speak your vision, they know that what you're saying applies to what it is that they want. And the examples that we gave before, right? We talked about dissatisfaction with Rosa Parks. Well, equality and civil rights checks the box. We talked about Gandhi, Indian independence, checks the box. And we can look at different entrepreneurs and folks that are doing different things. But once your vision links to their dissatisfaction quo, you almost have a guaranteed follower behind you. The moment that your child comes up and expresses to you a problem that they're having, and you can give them a vision, well, wouldn't it be great if it would be like this? Yeah, it would be great if it would be like that. You've got somebody who's willing to listen to you because you painted a picture for them, at least, that their life can be better. And the vision that I paint, so we'll jump to that. The vision that I paint for them is that if we improve your life now, and if we improve day-to-day life today, things will be better tomorrow. That if we keenly focus on rapid fire implementation, and this is where we get folks in everything that we do, is how do we improve your life by lunchtime? And that's the challenge that I always lay down. For example, for me, whenever I do a workshop, especially a long form engagement, is that something's going to be different today at lunch and you're going to have a story when you come back. And so anytime that I'm doing something long form, they're making phone calls at lunchtime that change their life. They're having deep conversations. They're making decisions. And that vision of, hey, we're overcomplicating things, we can get extremely practical. That resonates with the dissatisfaction of my folks. It's not the same of course, it's not the same for you. But if we can make changes by lunchtime, then I can convince you that, gosh, what could we do if we had a month together? What could we do if we had a year together? Like, we're going to change your life by tomorrow morning. And that second piece, when it comes to vision, it's so important that first, that it's authentic. All of this has to be authentic for it to work. But it's so important that we don't get caught up in articulating the vision that we see, but that we show them the part of the vision that most closely aligns with what it is that they're feeling. And the way that I like to think about it is like, simply, if you take a book, I got a bunch of books on my desk, I'll use the Tic Tacs, right? Using the Tic Tacs, if I describe I'm holding it up for those of you who are not watching. If I hold it up and I'm showing you the thin side, and I was just to describe this box to you, I would describe it in a very certain way. If I was to show you the back of it, there's a barcode and other things on it, I would describe it very differently. And if I was to show you the front of the Tic Tac package, I would describe it very differently. There's nothing inauthentic about describing the part of this package that is most relevant to you right now in this moment. Nothing disingenuous about that, but it's really important to be very specific about how that vision applies very specifically to the pain that you're articulating, or that they're articulating to you, if that makes sense.
Good. Okay. Step 3.
Cool. Step 3. So step 3, as you could probably predict, is natural next steps. And this is where most often for us, the sales part comes in. So natural next steps isn't something. Now, there is something to be said about providing content, like what Skot and I are doing right now, doing podcasts and other long form email lists and things like that. But the reality is that this is really where the sales part of your business comes in. If you do a really good job at identifying their dissatisfaction and articulating that, and that comes with time. And if you do a really good job at articulating that vision and they're excited, the next part is, what do we do about it? And there's something to be said about serving people in the moment. If you can help somebody, help them. But the reality is, this is where your workshops and your trainings and all of these things start to come into play. This is where you really can start to sell things that solve their problems. And there's something to be said about not giving away, all the cow if you can get the milk for free. I think that's what they say. I think that's how it goes, Skot. I could be wrong. But I think that natural next step is really where the power of your business comes in. And I think that this is where, for me, for example, if I sell something, one of the things that we do on our team is we have a questionnaire for the decision maker. So the decision maker isn't always a part of the execution. Sometimes the decision maker is several layers up. And I have something that we give them, a questionnaire that asks questions such as, what are you hoping to get out of this? How does this training align with your vision and your goals? What dynamics are you hoping to solve through this program? And through that questionnaire might not be for today, but it certainly helps to create future products that identify their dissatisfaction. And so anytime that we can get people to share those things with us, it can help us to create products that tackle their dissatisfaction as well, if that makes sense.
I love it. And this is, I think, I'm thinking about this as a speaker, and you've given some really impactful things. Is like just that next move onto where do we go from here? So, short-term inspiration, beautiful, fine. Long-term transformation is what we're all looking for, though.
Yep. Short-term
inspiration is what we're probably going to experience in this moment. And I love your thought about that. Is like how, you've experienced something. By lunchtime, you will be different than when you came into this room. Imagine what we could do over the course of a year, or a month.
Yeah.
Or what? I mean, I love that idea of like, how do we transition them, help them feel the experience, get buy-in, and then help them envision and imagine what could be.
Well, Skot, there's something really cool too, right? Which is, if we look at natural next steps, there's one way to think about it as products. And so having the product that is positioned to tackle their dissatisfaction after you communicate the vision is really strong. But I think one of the things that you're doing really well, we were talking about kind of in the pre-show here when you and I were talking, for example, is you have your book. And in your book, you invite people to be part of a community. This is where your movement is building. Because who's going to join your community? People that read your book, they're dissatisfied with whatever you describe in your book. And then the vision that you describe in your book, they're attracted to. Why else would they show up? And this group just starts to slowly grow, and it starts to pick up steam, and it starts to pick up momentum. And if all that you ask them to do is to be part of your community, then they're going to grow, and your community will continue. Assuming that you serve them well, you earn referrals, and you ask for them, right? You do those 3 things, they're going to show up. But then there's the next steps for your community, which is simple things like next steps can be, hey guys, next month, every 3rd month is Bring a Friend Day. And if you bring a friend, here's the bonus that you get. I'm going to send you a signed copy of my book for both, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Attach whatever incentive you want to attach to it. But inside it, so the community is a next step for the people who are attracted to your vision. But so is the Let's Bring a Friend Day, or hey, we're going to be doing this live in-person event in your city. All of these things are natural next steps. And for any people that do follow behind you, anyone who says, Skot, I'm attracted to your vision, I want to be in your army, those people need to know what to do next too. And for them, it isn't always buy the next product or buy the next book or listen to the next podcast episode. It's advocate, share, criticize me. Hey, once a month, can you send me something that tells me what I can do better to serve you? All of these things are natural next steps, and all of them help you in your business. And so always, and I think that's really the linchpin at the end, is always be analyzing what's working and what's not working. What are you wanting people to do with you? What are you wanting them to do for you? What do you want them to purchase? And if you can articulate those 3 things really well, you'll explode your movement. How can you not? You'll gain ground every single day.
That's awesome. So good, man. So good. Okay. 3, give me a book or a podcast or a movie or something that everybody should check out right now to help them be better at being a person or a coach or whatever they need to do?
All right. I am obsessed right now with Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. There's so much value in the book. The basic premise is, how do you do more of the things that only you can do? And how do you begin to outsource the things that are your time sinks? We'll say it like that. And some of that is done through automation, but he really hones in on how do we pay people to do the things that help us to make more money, if that makes sense. But Buy Back Your Time is a fantastic book. That's the one I would go with.
Okay, cool. All right. And then what advice would you have given yourself? I mean, you gave us some earlier and you gave us advice this whole time, but like, what do you wish you would have known back when you built your business that you know now? What do you wish somebody would have told you back in the day? What's the hope? What's the vision that you want to give everybody else that is maybe struggling or maybe working on, they're excited, but they just don't know where to go next? Like, what is that thing you would tell them to like keep them pumped?
So one of the things I struggle with, and I struggle with it even now, is I tend to be very good at attracting people. I tend to be very good at painting the vision that people want to follow. I tend to be really bad at some of the things we talked about today, which is giving people the natural next step and making sure everybody knows what to do. And I thought early in my time, and we touched a little bit on this, that, I used to run my business like a club. Anybody who wanted to support it, they got to come around and support it. And there's a lot of amazing people that came in that season. But the reality is, like, people want to be led, and not in a negative way. Like, people want time, they want vision, they want encouragement, they want all of the things that they need to thrive. And I think that for me, I thought early in my career that just giving people vision and just attracting people would get me where I wanted to be. And I think that the more that I have as a consultant and as a team leader codified process, and the more that I've leaned into leading my team, I think that has been, it sounds counterintuitive, the business that we're in, but that's probably been the most impactful thing for me over the last 2 years, is really realizing that my leadership days are not over. I'm not just a leadership consultant, Skot. I'm actually leading a team, and that team wants to be led well. And I think that that's the advice I would probably give myself is, keep doing it at home.
Yeah. So good, man. Dude, I can't wait to give you a big hug when I see you next. You're the man. I really appreciate you being here and spending this time giving a gift to everybody else that's listening right now. If people want to ask you some questions, maybe they have follow up. They're like, hey, man, what about that thing you said? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can email me at mark@marktilsher.com. And I know Skot will put that into the show notes. So you're welcome to email me. I used to have a hard time with email, but I get back really fast these days. So if you want to throw, because of Dan Martell, by the way. So yeah, if you want to throw an email at me, I'm happy to jump on a call with you. Happy to help you out. And Skot, super impressed with your other, well, I'll tell you that after the show.
No, you tell everybody now. Tell everybody how impressed you are with me. Go ahead.
Man, I am so as I was listening to your podcast, one of the things I was so impressed by was
Wait, which one? Unlocked, right?
Yeah. So as I was listening to Unlocked, the call to action you have at the beginning, which is, hey, jump on a 15-minute call with me and I'll solve whatever problem you've got. Skot, that is so good. And as soon as I heard it, I'm like, man, I'm going to steal it. But I need to talk to Skot first to make sure I don't steal it in a bad way. But man, it's so good. Skot, it's so good. I was so impressed by that. And I'm like, man, it's a challenge.
That's
and
pressure,
if you can do
man. That's pressure.
Well, they're going to get on the phone and give you their dissatisfaction. You're going to get like, Skot, what a relationship builder, man. Really cool. Super impressive.
It's fun. It's really hard to keep people's problems to 15 minutes. Like they spend 15 minutes talking about their problem, right? So it's kind of like, let's keep it short and punchy, but there is some practical advice I'm going to give you. And you know that too. And that's what makes Giant so cool for us, is that there's practical tips and actionable items with everything. And the tools are so simple and so bite-sized that you can teach them in 5 minutes and it's done, So anyway, well, thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that, man. And feel free to steal my 15-minute coaching call offer, man. I would love nothing more.
All right, I'll put inspired by Scott Waldron.
There you go. Yes, give me some credit. I want a little commission check for every time you solve a problem. And
I'll talk to my bookkeeper, man. Checks in the mail.
Yeah, do it. Okay, dude, you're awesome. I appreciate you. I will see you soon, and keep building what you're building.
Go, brother. Thanks for today.
Thank you for joining me today on how they do that. If you found this helpful, please rate the show wherever you listen to podcasts. You see, I help you, you help me. That's how it works. Oh, and please do not keep this to yourself. Share the show with a fellow coach who could also use these insights. Keep exploring, my friends. Never stop asking how'd they do that? Because with every question, you get closer and closer to refining your business and scaling your impact.